The conference room buzzed with the kind of energy that only comes when serious money is about to change hands. 50 investors sat in plush leather chairs, their tablets glowing with projections that promised to make them all very, very rich. At the front of the room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the San Francisco skyline, but nobody was looking at the view. All eyes were on the stage, where a man in a black turtleneck stood beneath a massive screen displaying a sleek app interface. Trey Vance adjusted his wireless microphone with the practiced ease of someone who'd watched too many TED Talks. His smile was brilliant, his posture confident. Next to him, a young woman in a designer dress held a tablet, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the screen occasionally to advance the slides. 5 years ago, Trey began, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey, I had a vision. While everyone else was creating another social media app or food delivery service, I saw the future of personal data security. I locked myself in my garage, taught myself advanced cryptography, and built something that would change everything. The investors leaned forward. This was the story they wanted to hear. The garage genius, the self-made tech savior. I call it Vault Core, Trey continued, gesturing to the screen where elegant code scrolled past. An encryption algorithm so advanced, so unbreakable, that it makes everything else on the market look like a diary with a heart-shaped lock. And I built it alone. Every line of code, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt where I wondered if I was crazy. Vanessa, the woman beside him, touched his arm gently, her eyes shining with admiration. The investors ate it up. This wasn't just a pitch. This was a romance. Man versus machine, genius versus impossible odds. The nights were brutal, Trey said, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. There were times I wanted to quit. Times when the code wouldn't compile, when nothing made sense, when I questioned everything. But I kept going. Because I knew this would matter. I knew this would protect millions of people's most precious information. Applause rippled through the room. The head of Sterling Ventures, an older man with silver hair and a $10,000 watch, nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of founder story that made headlines, that made fortunes. Trey clicked to the next slide, showing projected revenue streams that made several investors actually gasp. With your investment today, we'll bring Vault Core to market in 6 months. Every smartphone, every laptop, every device will need this level of protection, and we'll be the only ones who can provide it. More applause. Vanessa beamed at him, Trey's smile grew wider, and then the lights dimmed. A woman's voice, clear and cold, cut through the room like a scalpel through flesh. Alone, Trey? Really? The applause died. Heads turned, searching for the source of the interruption. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, amplified through the room's sound system. Tell me, since you built it alone, the voice continued, each word dripping with barely controlled fury. Can you explain what happens in code line 405, the encryption cascade? Trey's smile faltered. His eyes darted around the room, trying to locate the speaker. This is a closed presentation. Security. We have an... What about the recursive function in Module 7? The voice pressed. The one that handles authentication tokens. You built that alone too. Trey's face was reddening now. Vanessa looked confused, her hand frozen on the tablet. The investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The spotlight that had been illuminating the stage suddenly swiveled, cutting through the darkness to illuminate the head table where the senior investors sat. There was an executive chair there that had been turned away from the room, facing the windows. It slowly, deliberately began to rotate. Because I'm very curious, Trey, the voice said, now clearly coming from that chair, about how you built something alone when you don't even know how it works. The chair completed its rotation. A woman sat there, dressed in a white blazer that probably cost more than Trey's car. Her dark hair was cut in a sharp, geometric style that framed a face with eyes like flint. She wore glasses with designer frames, and her posture radiated the kind of power that doesn't need to be loud to be absolute. Trey's face went white. Actually white. The blood drained so fast he had to grab the podium to steady himself. Layla, he whispered, the microphone catching every syllable. What? What are you doing here? She stood, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she walked toward the stage. In her hand was a leather portfolio. "Did you bring me here to fetch coffee, Trey? To take notes? Maybe to admire your genius from the back row?" Nervous laughter rippled through the investors. They thought this was part of the presentation, some kind of theatrical stunt. Trey's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. We can talk about this later. This is—" "No, Trey," Layla said, her voice sharp enough to cut diamonds. "We can't talk about it later, because there is no later for you. Not here, not with my company." She reached the stage, standing directly in front of him. Up close, the difference between them was stark. She radiated intelligence, precision, control. He radiated panic. "Your company?" Trey managed, trying to laugh it off. "Layla, you're confused. You're embarrassing yourself. Vanessa, can you call security?" Vanessa pulled out her phone, but Layla didn't even glance at her. "Mr. Sterling," Layla said, turning to address the silver-haired man at the head table. "Should we tell him, or would you like to?" The old investor stood, and for the first time, Trey noticed he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, a shark smile. "Mr. Vance," Sterling said, his voice carrying the weight of old money and older power, "allow me to introduce you to Sterling Ventures' newest majority partner, Dr. Layla Vance, your wife. Well, ex-wife, and as of yesterday, the owner of 60% of this company's shares." The room erupted in whispers. Trey staggered backward. That's impossible. I own this company. I founded it. You stole it," Layla finished quietly. "But we'll get to that. First, I'd like you to continue your presentation, please. Show everyone how Vault Core works. Explain the architecture, the encryption protocols, the security framework." She smiled, and it was the most terrifying smile Trey had ever seen. "Go ahead, genius. Show us what you built. Alone." Trey stood frozen on that stage, his mouth opening and closing. But Layla wasn't waiting for an answer. She had waited 5 years. 5 years was long enough. Let me help you, Trey," she said, walking to the laptop connected to the presentation screen. "Since you seem to have forgotten how your own creation works." She typed a command in, and the screen changed. Instead of the polished marketing slides, raw code appeared. Thousands of lines of it, scrolling past in green text on a black background. "This is Vault Core," Layla announced to the room. "And I know every single line, because I wrote every single line." She turned to face the investors, her back to Trey, dismissing him entirely. 5 years ago, I was finishing my PhD in cryptographic systems at MIT. My dissertation was on quantum-resistant encryption algorithms. Trey was my husband, a marketing manager at a mid-level tech firm who'd been fired for amnesia, and I quote from his termination letter, "Creative interpretation of sales figures." Vanessa's eyes widened. She looked at Trey, who had gone from white to red, his fists clenched at his sides. "Layla, shut up," he hissed. "You're ruining everything." "No, Trey," she said calmly. "You ruined everything. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." She clicked to the next screen. It showed a timeline. "We were married for 3 years when I had the idea for Vault Core. Trey was between jobs, again. We were living off my graduate stipend and what little I made as a teaching assistant. He wanted to start a tech company, but he had no technical skills, no coding ability, no understanding of software architecture." Layla paused, letting that sink in. Several investors were now looking at Trey with very different expressions than they had 5 minutes ago. "But he had confidence," Layla continued. "And he had me, so he proposed a partnership. He would handle the business side when the product was ready. Fundraising, marketing, strategy. I would build the actual technology. We'd be equal partners, 50-50. The screen changed again, showing a document. "This is the original partnership agreement we drafted, signed by both of us. Notice the date, 5 years ago." Mr. Sterling was now taking notes. Other investors had their phones out, recording. "I worked on Vault Core for 5 years, Layla said, and for the first time, her voice carried a hint of emotion. "I gave up my PhD. I gave up job offers from Google, from Apple, from every major tech company you can name, because Trey said we were building something together, something that would be ours. She walked slowly across the stage, her heels clicking in the silence. I worked 16-hour days, in our garage, because we couldn't afford office space. Trey said he was networking, meeting potential investors, building relationships. What he was actually doing was playing video games, going to bars, and apparently, meeting Vanessa. Vanessa had backed away from Trey now, her face pale. The code was brutal, Layla continued. Encryption isn't like building a website or a simple app, it's mathematics, pure, unforgiving mathematics. One wrong variable and the entire system collapses. I had to invent new approaches, new methods. There were nights I fell asleep at my keyboard, mornings I woke up still in my chair, cold coffee next to me, my neck screaming in pain. She stopped, looking directly at Trey. And every time I showed you progress, every breakthrough, you'd pat me on the head and say, "That's great, babe. You're so smart. I'm the vision guy. You're the execution girl." Several people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Then, 8 months ago, something wonderful happened, Layla said, her voice brightening sarcastically. I finished it. 5 years of work, and Vault Core was complete, functional, revolutionary, everything I'd promised it would be. The screen showed test results, performance metrics, security audits, all of them were extraordinary. I showed Trey, Layla said quietly. I was so proud, so excited. This was it, our dream, our company, our future. She paused, and the silence stretched until it was almost unbearable. Trey said we needed to protect the intellectual property, file patents, create a corporate structure. He said he'd hired a lawyer, a specialist in tech startups. He said I needed to sign some papers, for insurance purposes, to make sure everything was legal and protected. Layla pulled a document from her leather portfolio and held it up. I trusted my husband, so I signed. I didn't read carefully. I should have, but I trusted him. She threw the document onto the presentation table, where it landed with a slap that echoed through the room. What I actually signed was a transfer of all intellectual property rights to Trey's personal LLC. Not our partnership, his company. I signed away 5 years of my life, 5 years of work, my entire creation. I gave it all to him because I was stupid enough to believe that my husband wouldn't betray me. Trey finally found his voice. You were compensated. I paid you for your time. Layla laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. He paid me $12,000 for 5 years of doctoral-level cryptographic development. That's about 65 cents an hour. Gasps from the audience. And then, Layla said, her voice dropping to something cold and deadly. 3 days after I signed those papers, Trey came home with Vanessa. Every eye in the room turned to the younger woman, who looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. He told me, Layla continued, speaking each word with precision, that he was going to be a CEO now, that he needed a partner who understood public relations and image, someone who looked good in photographs, someone who could network at parties without talking about boring things like code and security protocols. She turned back to Trey. You told me I was too much behind the scenes, too nerdy, too invisible. You said Vanessa was what a tech founder's wife should look like. Layla, that's not... Trey started. You told me I should be grateful. Layla spoke over him, her voice rising for the first time. Grateful. You said I should thank you for letting me be part of something important, for giving me the chance to contribute to a real business, even if I couldn't be the face of it. She was walking toward him now, and Trey actually backed up. You moved Vanessa into our house, the house we bought with my graduate school loan. You changed the locks. You had your lawyer serve me with divorce papers. And you took my life's work and claimed you built it alone in a garage. Layla stopped inches from him. You gave interviews to TechCrunch, to Wired, to Forbes. You told them about your lonely nights of genius, your sacrifices, your vision. You showed them the code I wrote and said it was yours. The patent is in my name, Trey said desperately, looking at the investors. Legally, it's mine. She signed it over. This is just a disgruntled ex-wife trying to... The patent is in your name, Layla agreed, cutting him off. But patents can be challenged, especially when there's evidence of fraud. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. The presentation display changed to show an email thread, hundreds of emails, all dated over the past 5 years. These are emails between me and Professor Richard Chen at MIT, Layla explained. Every major breakthrough in Vault-Core's development, I emailed him for peer review. Every piece of code, every algorithm, every security protocol, all time-stamped, all from my email address, all describing work I was doing. She scrolled through them, and the dates were unmistakable. They went back 5 years, ending 8 months ago. Professor Chen is prepared to testify that I consulted with him throughout the entire development process. He has copies of my code, my notes, my research, all of it dated and verified. Trey's lawyer voice came out. That doesn't prove anything. We were married. We collaborated. Of course you helped. I also, Layla interrupted, kept every single version of the code, every backup, every iteration, all stored on secure servers with timestamps and digital signatures. She tapped her phone again. The screen showed a repository with thousands of files. GitHub commits. All from my account. 5 years of version history. Want to see when Trey made his first commit? She clicked, and the data was damning. Trey's name appeared exactly once, 8 months ago, when he'd forked the repository into his own account. 1 commit, Layla said. He changed the name on the licensing file from Layla Vance to Trey Vance. That was his contribution to 5 years of development. The room had gone completely silent. Even Vanessa had sat down, her face buried in her hands. Mr. Sterling stood up. Mr. Vance, I think we need to have a very serious conversation. In private. But Layla held up her hand. Actually, Mr. Sterling, I'd prefer if we did this publicly. Transparency, you know, it's important in business. She turned back to the investors. After Trey kicked me out, I was homeless for 2 weeks. I slept in my car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a broken heater. In February, I ate ramen noodles and whatever I could get from food banks. I showered at the YMCA. Her voice was steady, but there was steel in it. Meanwhile, Trey was living in our house with Vanessa, eating at expensive restaurants, wearing designer clothes, driving a Tesla he bought with investment money he got by pitching my work as his own. I hit bottom, Layla continued, but when you hit bottom, you have 2 choices. You can stay there, or you can use it as a foundation to build something higher. She smiled, and it was genuinely warm this time. I chose to build. I reached out to an old colleague from MIT, Layla said. She worked at a venture capital firm in Boston. I sent her everything, the emails, the code repository, the evidence that Vault-Core was mine. I explained what Trey had done. The screen changed to show a professional photograph of a woman in her 50s, sharp-eyed and elegant. This is Jennifer Morrison, Layla said. She runs Morrison Tech Ventures. She looked at my evidence, looked at the technology, and made me an offer. She would fund my lawsuit to reclaim Vault-Core. In exchange, I would work for her firm as a technical advisor. Layla's smile widened. But then Jennifer introduced me to Mr. Sterling, and Mr. Sterling had a much more interesting idea. The old investor stood again, taking over the narrative. I looked at Ms. Vance's evidence. I looked at the technology. And I looked at Mr. Vance's pitch deck, which my firm had already given $2 million. He paused for effect, and I got very, very angry. Nobody commits fraud with my money, Sterling continued, his voice hard. Nobody lies to me about who built what, so I made Dr. Vance a proposal. I would buy out my partner investors, shares in this company. I would make her the majority owner. And together, we would let Mr. Vance continue with his charade just long enough to hang himself with his own rope. Trey looked like he might vomit. We scheduled today's presentation, Sterling said. We invited the press, other investors, potential clients. We made sure it would be a big, public event. Because when someone commits fraud, I don't just want justice. I want everyone to know about it. He gestured to Layla. Dr. Vance has spent the last 3 months working with our legal team, with her code repositories, with expert witnesses. She has an airtight case. The patent will be invalidated and reissued in her name. The company will be restructured. And Mr. Vance will be very lucky if he avoids criminal charges. Trey's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the stage floor, his head in his hands. Vanessa stood up shakily. "I didn't know," she said, her voice small. "Trey, you told me you built this. You said she barely helped. You said—" "Shut up, Vanessa," Trey moaned. But Layla walked over to the younger woman, and her voice was almost kind. "He lied to you too. I'm not angry at you." "Well," she corrected herself, "I'm a little angry. You did move into my house and sleep in my bed. But mostly, I'm angry at him." She turned to address the entire room one final time. 5 years ago, I was a graduate student with a dream. I believed in partnership, in collaboration, in building something together with someone I loved. Trey taught me a valuable lesson. Never trust someone who needs your talent more than they respect it. Layla walked back to her seat at the investors' table, settling in as if she'd always belonged there. "Now," she said, looking at Trey with those flint-hard eyes, "let's talk about what happens next." The conference room had emptied of most investors, leaving only the core group, Mr. Sterling, his legal team, 2 other senior partners from Sterling Ventures, and Layla. Trey sat slumped in a chair at the front, Vanessa hovering uncertainly near the door like she couldn't decide whether to stay or flee. Mr. Sterling's lead attorney, a woman named Patricia Webb with silver streaks in her black hair and the eyes of someone who'd destroyed better people than Trey before breakfast, spread documents across the table. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice clinical, "you have 3 options. Option 1, you resign as CEO immediately, surrender all claims to VaultCore's intellectual property, and cooperate fully with the transfer of ownership to Dr. Vance. In exchange, we won't pursue criminal fraud charges." Trey's head snapped up. "Criminal charges? I didn't commit fraud. We were married. Community property means—" "California is a community property state for assets acquired during marriage," Patricia interrupted smoothly. "However, intellectual property created by one spouse remains that spouse's separate property unless explicitly gifted or sold. The document you had Dr. Vance sign was procured under false pretenses, making it voidable. That's civil fraud." She flipped to another document. "However, when you presented VaultCore to investors as your sole creation, when you signed patent applications swearing under penalty of perjury that you were the inventor, when you accepted investment capital based on those false representations, that's wire fraud, that's securities fraud, that's potentially federal prison, Mr. Vance." Trey's face had gone gray. "I want my lawyer." "Option 2, Patricia continued as if he hadn't spoken. "You fight us. You claim the patent is valid, that Dr. Vance's signature was legitimate, that you were the true creator. We go to court. Discovery happens. Every email you've ever sent gets subpoenaed. Every text message. Every investor you've ever pitched gets deposed. The press has a field day. And when we win, and we will win, you get nothing. And the criminal charges remain on the table." "Option 3, Mr. Sterling said, leaning forward, "interests me most." Everyone looked at him. The old man's smile was predatory. "Option 3 is that Dr. Vance is a better person than I am. She's proposed something I find both remarkably cruel and absolutely delicious." Layla stood, walking to the presentation screen. "Mr. Sterling is right. I am better than him. But I'm not that much better." She pulled up a calendar. "VaultCore is scheduled to launch in 6 months. You've already spent half the investment capital on marketing, office space, hiring staff, and apparently, a very nice Tesla." Trey flinched. "You've promised investors a working product demonstration in 30 days, Layla continued. "A live demo at the Tech Security Summit in Vegas. You've told them VaultCore will protect data from quantum computer attacks, that it's unbreakable, that it's the future of digital security." She turned to face him directly. "Here's my proposal. You keep your title. For now. You continue as CEO. You prepare for that demonstration. You try to make Vault Core work. Trey's expression shifted from despair to confusion. What? I want you to try, Layla said simply. I want you to sit with the code. Look at it. Try to understand it. Try to modify it. Try to explain it to the team you've hired. Try to fix the problems that are about to emerge. What problems? Trey asked warily. Layla's smile was arctic. You stole the code, Trey, but you didn't steal all of it. She clicked to a technical diagram that meant nothing to anyone in the room except her. Vault Core has a master encryption key, a seed algorithm that generates all the subordinate security protocols. It's the heart of the entire system. Without it, Vault Core is just pretty interface design with no actual security. Understanding dawned in Trey's eyes, followed immediately by panic. That master key, Layla continued, is not in the code you stole. It's in a separate, encrypted module that only I have access to. I kept it on a private server with biometric authentication. You got the body, Trey, but I kept the brain. She let that sink in for a moment. Vault Core will work perfectly for about 30 days. Then the temporary key I embedded will expire, and the system will start to fail, slowly at first, random errors, occasional crashes. Nothing catastrophic, not yet. But by day 45, Layla said, walking closer to him, it will be unusable. Every encryption will fail. Every security protocol will crash. Your live demonstration at the Tech Security Summit will be a very public, very expensive disaster. Trey was on his feet now. You can't do this. I'll tell the investors. I'll tell them you're sabotaging... Sabotaging what? Layla asked sweetly. My own code? The code you swore you wrote? If you tell investors that the system doesn't work without me, you're admitting I built it. If you stay silent, you have 45 days to figure out how to fix something you don't understand. Mr. Sterling was actually chuckling. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You're insane, Trey breathed. Why would you do this? Why not just take the company now? Layla's expression hardened. Because I want you to understand what it feels like. The sleepless nights. The impossible problems. The desperate feeling of knowing something is broken and not having any idea how to fix it. I want you to feel stupid, inadequate, helpless. She stepped closer to him, her voice dropping to a whisper that everyone in the room could still hear. I want you to feel like I felt when you called me just the execution girl. When you said I was too nerdy, too invisible, not pretty enough to be the face of success. I want you to drown in your own inadequacy, Trey. And I want to watch. Vanessa made a small sound from near the door. When everyone looked at her, she was crying silently. Of course, Layla said, straightening up and returning to her businesslike tone. You have the option to resign right now. Sign everything over. Walk away. Option 1 is still available. Trey looked at her, then at Mr. Sterling, then at the lawyers, his jaw clenched. No. No? Layla asked, surprised. I know, Trey repeated, and some of his old confidence was creeping back into his voice. You're bluffing. You wouldn't sabotage your own creation. You spent 5 years building Vault Core. You wouldn't let it fail just to hurt me. He stood straighter. I think you're playing games. I think the code works fine, and you're trying to scare me into giving up everything. Well, I'm not scared. I'll call your bluff. Layla looked at Mr. Sterling. The old man shrugged. Your choice, son. Your funeral. Fine, Layla said. Then let's make it interesting. You have 45 days. If you can make Vault Core work perfectly, without my help, without the master key, then we'll renegotiate. Maybe I'll accept that you contributed something after all. But when you fail, she continued, her voice hard, when your demonstration crashes in front of 5,000 people and every tech journalist in the world, you don't just resign. You hold a press conference. You tell everyone the truth, every detail, how you stole it, how you lied, how you got caught. And if by some miracle you succeed, Trey asked, then I'll publicly acknowledge that you were able to reverse engineer my work, Layla said. That takes some skill, even if it's not creation. You can keep 20% of the company. I'll take 80. Trey thought about it. His eyes were calculating. 20% of a successful tech company could still be worth millions, tens of millions. And if he could crack Layla's code, prove he wasn't completely useless. "Deal," he said. Patricia Webb immediately pulled out a contract. "This needs to be in writing." For the next 20 minutes, lawyers drafted an agreement. Trey would remain CEO for 45 days. He would attempt to make VaultCore fully functional without assistance from Layla. If he succeeded, verified by an independent technical review, he would retain 20% ownership. If he failed, he would resign, transfer all rights, and make a public confession. Layla would be appointed as a special technical advisor to Sterling Ventures, with an office in the building and access to all company facilities. She would not interfere with Trey's work, but would be available to observe. Both parties signed. As the meeting broke up, Vanessa approached Layla hesitantly. "Dr. Vance, can I talk to you?" Layla looked at her coolly. "Go ahead." "I really didn't know," Vanessa said, her voice shaking. "Trey told me you two were already separated when we met. He said you'd agreed to a quiet divorce. He said you wanted him to have the company because you didn't care about business stuff." "And you believed him?" Layla asked. "I was 23, Vanessa said. "He was older, successful, confident. He said all the right things. I thought—" She trailed off. "I thought I was special." Layla studied the younger woman for a long moment. "You're not the villain here, Vanessa. You're just another person he used. The difference is, you're starting to realize it." "What should I do?" Vanessa asked. "That depends," Layla said. "Are you with him because you love him? Or because you love what you thought he was?" Vanessa was quiet. "Think about it," Layla said, not unkindly. "You have 45 days to decide if you want to be standing next to him when everything falls apart." She left Vanessa standing there and walked to where Mr. Sterling was gathering his papers. "You're really going to let him try?" the old man asked. "Absolutely," Layla said. "He'll fail." "I know. He might try to hack your server. Steal the master key." "I know," Layla said again. "I've got security monitoring. If he tries, we'll have even more evidence of computer fraud, and he won't succeed anyway. The encryption on my private server uses the same quantum-resistant algorithms as VaultCore itself. Algorithms he doesn't understand." Sterling grinned. "You've thought of everything." "I've had a lot of time to think," Layla said quietly. 14 nights in a car with a broken heater gives you plenty of thinking time." The old man's expression softened slightly. "You could have come to me immediately. The moment he stole the code, we could have shut him down before he got this far." "I know," Layla said. "But that wouldn't have been enough. I needed him to get close to success. Close enough to taste it. Close enough to believe in his own brilliance. Because when he falls from that height, it won't just hurt. It will destroy him." She looked at Sterling directly. "You think I'm being cruel?" "I think," Sterling said carefully, "that you're being human. He hurt you, badly. You want him to hurt back. I understand that." "But," Layla prompted. "But be careful," Sterling said. "Revenge is satisfying. I won't pretend it isn't, but it can also consume you. Don't let destroying him become more important than building yourself back up." Layla nodded slowly. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm not being consumed. I'm being strategic. When Trey fails, it won't just vindicate me. It will send a message to every tech bro who thinks he can steal a woman's work and claim it as his own. It will matter beyond just us." "Fair enough," Sterling said. "But I'm also a businessman. VaultCore is genuinely revolutionary. The technology could be worth billions. If we spend the next 45 days playing psychological warfare instead of preparing for a real launch, we lose market advantage." "We won't lose anything," Layla assured him. "While Trey is fumbling around with code he doesn't understand, I'll be working with your team on the real launch strategy. We'll have a backup plan ready. When he fails publicly, I'll step in immediately with the working version. The narrative will be even better. Genius creator reclaims her stolen work and saves the company. The press will love it." Sterling considered this. "You've really thought through every angle. Every single one," Layla confirmed. Over the next 2 weeks, Layla watched with grim satisfaction as Trey struggled. She'd been given an office 3 doors down from his, and she could hear the frustration in his voice as he yelled at the developers he'd hired. "It's not that complicated." Trey's voice carried through the walls. "It's just code. Figure it out." The lead developer, a young guy named Marcus with impressive credentials from Carnegie Mellon, appeared at Layla's door on day 5. "Dr. Vance, can I ask you something?" "Of course," Layla said, looking up from her laptop. "Mr. Vance says he wrote Vault Core," Marcus said carefully, "but he can't explain any of the architecture. He doesn't understand the encryption cascades. He told me to just make it work when I asked about the quantum resistance protocols." Marcus hesitated. "I looked you up. MIT, PhD, dissertation on quantum-resistant cryptography, published papers on elliptic curve encryption, and your name is all over the code comments in Vault Core's architecture." "What's your question, Marcus?" Layla asked. "Did you write this?" he asked directly. Layla smiled. "What do you think?" "I think," Marcus said slowly, "that I'm working for the wrong person." "You're working for Sterling Ventures," Layla corrected. "Mr. Vance is just the temporary CEO, but I appreciate your observation. Is there any way to make Vault Core work without whatever he's missing?" Marcus asked. "Because he's got us chasing ghosts. Every solution we try fails after a few days. It's like the system is designed to reject any fixes." "That's very perceptive," Layla said. "Tell me, Marcus, if you knew the system was going to fail no matter what would you do?" Marcus thought about it. "Document everything. Make sure it's clear that the failure wasn't due to my team's incompetence. Protect my reputation." "Smart," Layla said. "You should do that." Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. "This is all going to crash, isn't it?" "I can neither confirm nor deny that," Layla said. "But yes, documenting your team's good faith efforts would be very wise." Marcus left, and Layla heard him gathering his team shortly after. She approved. The developers weren't the enemy. They were just caught in Trey's disaster. On day 18, Trey appeared at her door. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. The confident tech bro from the presentation was gone, replaced by a desperate man who hadn't slept in days. "I need your help," he said without preamble. "No," Layla said, not looking up from her work. "Layla, please. I can't figure out the encryption key. The system keeps failing. If you just give me the master algorithm." "Why would I do that?" Layla asked, finally meeting his eyes. "Because it's your code too," Trey said desperately. "You don't want it to fail any more than I do. Your reputation is tied to this." "My reputation," Layla said coldly, "is based on my actual work. My published research, my PhD, my skills, not on Vault Core. If Vault Core fails under your leadership, that reflects on you, not me." "Everyone will know you sabotaged it," Trey shouted. "Will they?" Layla asked calmly. "Or will they know that you couldn't make it work because you didn't actually build it? That you're a fraud who stole someone else's genius and couldn't even maintain it?" Trey's fists clenched. For a moment, Layla thought he might actually try to hit her. But Mr. Sterling's head of security, a large man named Derek, appeared in the hallway at that exact moment, his timing suspiciously perfect. "Everything okay, Dr. Vance?" Derek asked. "Fine," Layla said pleasantly. "Mr. Vance was just leaving." Trey left, and Layla heard him screaming in his office shortly after. Something broke. Glass, probably. She made a note to have Sterling bill him for any damages. On day 27, Vanessa came to Layla's office. She was no longer wearing designer clothes, just jeans and a simple blouse, no jewelry, her hair was in a ponytail. "I'm leaving him," she said quietly. "Good," Layla said. "I wanted you to know. I gave him money. My savings, $20,000. He said he needed it to hire a consultant who could fix the code." Layla looked up sharply. "What consultant?" "I don't know," Vanessa said. "Someone he met online, in some dark web forum or something. He was very secretive about it." Layla's mind raced. If Trey was trying to hire hackers. "Thank you for telling me," she said. That afternoon, She checked her security logs. Sure enough, there had been multiple attempted breaches of her private server over the past week. Sophisticated attempts, but not sophisticated enough. She designed the security herself, after all. She called Mr. Sterling. Trey's trying to hack my server. He's hired someone. Do we shut him down now? Sterling asked. No, Layla said. Let him keep trying. Every attempt is documented. It's more evidence, but I want enhanced monitoring. If they actually get close to succeeding, we intervene. You're playing with fire, Sterling warned. I built the fire, Layla said. I know exactly how hot it burns. On day 35, 10 days before the Vegas demonstration, the Vault Core system had its first major public failure. A beta tester's data was briefly exposed when the encryption failed during a routine backup. It wasn't catastrophic, no real harm done, but it was embarrassing. Tech blogs picked up the story. Vault Core's unbreakable encryption broke, read one headline. Is Vault Core vaporware? Asked another. Trey issued a statement blaming a minor bug that was already fixed. But Layla knew the failures would only accelerate now. The temporary key was degrading faster as it approached expiration. On day 40, 5 days before Vegas, Vanessa showed up at Layla's apartment. She'd gotten the address somehow. And he's going to do something desperate, Vanessa said. I moved out yesterday, and he was ranting about how you'd ruined his life, how you'd taken everything from him. Layla, I think he might, I don't know, hurt himself or hurt you. Layla felt a chill. Did he threaten me specifically? Not exactly, Vanessa said, but he kept saying you had to pay, that you couldn't get away with destroying him. Layla called Derek, Sterling's security chief. Within an hour, she had personal protection. A threat assessment was conducted. Trey was visited by the police for a welfare check that also served as a very clear warning not to try anything stupid. The next day, Trey's lawyer called Layla's lawyer. He wanted to negotiate. He'll resign, Patricia Webb relayed. He'll transfer everything. He just wants to avoid the public confession. He wants to quietly fade away. Layla thought about it. She was so close to complete victory, but Vanessa's warning echoed in her mind. A desperate man was dangerous. No, she said finally. The deal was clear. Public failure, public confession, that was the agreement. He's claiming duress, Patricia said. Says you coerced him with threats. Everything is documented, Layla said. He signed willingly, with his own lawyer present. Let him try to claim duress. It won't work. 3 days before Vegas, Layla arrived at the office to find chaos. Trey had fired the entire development team overnight. Marcus and his developers had been escorted out by security at 3 a.m. Layla found Mr. Sterling. What happened? He's spiraling, Sterling said grimly. Claims the developers were incompetent, that they sabotaged him deliberately. He's trying to hire an entirely new team to fix Vault Core before the demonstration. That's impossible, Layla said. No one could understand the code base in 3 days. I know that, Sterling said. You know that. But Trey is past rational thinking. That evening, Marcus called Layla. Dr. Vance, I thought you should know. Before Trey fired us, he was talking about presenting a fake demo in Vegas, using recorded video instead of a live system. Faking the whole thing. Layla's eyes widened. If Trey pulled off a fake demonstration, if he fooled the investors and the press even temporarily, it would complicate everything. Do you have proof? She asked. I have his emails to a video production company, or, Marcus said. He was stupid enough to use his work email. I forwarded them to myself before they cut my access. Send them to me, Layla said. And Marcus, when this is over, you and your team will have jobs. Good ones. I promise. The night before the Vegas demonstration, Layla couldn't sleep. Everything was in place. The evidence, the timeline, the inevitable failure. But something gnawed at her. She thought about what Mr. Sterling had said, about revenge consuming her, about being careful. She thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago, idealistic, trusting, excited about partnership and collaboration. She thought about the woman she was now. Harder. Calculating, driven by vindication and anger, Was this who she wanted to be? Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Layla? It was Trey's voice, but different. Broken. I can't do this. I can't go to Vegas tomorrow. I can't stand in front of all those people and fail. Then don't, Layla said quietly. If I resign now, will you call it off? The public confession. Can we just end this? Layla thought about it. Really thought about it. She could say yes. She could let him slink away in defeat. She'd get the company, the recognition, everything she wanted, but would it be enough? You humiliated me, she said finally. You took 5 years of my life and claimed it as yours. You called me invisible, inadequate, not good enough. You made me homeless. You made me feel worthless. I know, Trey said, and he was crying now. Actually crying. I know I did. And I'm sorry. God, Layla, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it? Layla asked. Or sorry you got caught? Silence. That's what I thought, Layla said. See you in Vegas, Trey. She hung up. Tomorrow, everything would end. One way or another. The Las Vegas Tech Security Summit was held at the Venetian in a massive ballroom designed to hold 3,000 people. By the time Trey's demonstration was scheduled, nearly 5,000 had crammed in, standing in the aisles, sitting on the floors near the walls. Volcor had become the most anticipated product launch of the year, partly due to the beta test failure that had leaked online. Everyone wanted to see if the unbreakable encryption would break again. Layla sat in the third row, right on the aisle. She wore a sleek navy suit with a white silk blouse, her hair perfectly styled, her expression serene. Next to her sat Mr. Sterling, and next to him, Patricia Webb. Behind them sat Marcus and his entire development team, who'd flown out at Sterling's expense to witness what they'd all been waiting for. The stage was enormous. Multiple screens showed the Volcor logo, a sleek silver vault door with intricate digital patterns flowing across it. Trey had spared no expense on production value. There were lights, music, dramatic smoke effects, everything designed to make this look like the product launch of the decade. But Layla knew the truth. She'd been monitoring Volcor's stability for the past 48 hours. The system was hanging on by a thread. The temporary encryption key had degraded to critical levels. Any significant stress test would cause cascading failures. And Trey had promised the audience a live stress test. The lights dimmed, dramatic music swelled. A video montage began playing on the screens, showing hackers in hoodies, data breaches, crying victims of identity theft, news headlines about cybersecurity disasters. The message was clear. The digital world was dangerous, and Volcor was the solution. Then Trey walked out on stage. He'd clearly spent money on his appearance. Designer suit, perfect hair, makeup for the cameras. He looked like a tech titan, confident and commanding. But Layla could see what the audience couldn't. His hands were shaking slightly. His smile was too tight. His eyes kept darting to the wings as if expecting disaster to emerge at any moment. 5 years ago, Trey began, and Layla almost laughed at the audacity. I had a vision. It was the same speech he'd given at the investor presentation, word for word. He'd memorized it, polished it, perfected it, the lonely genius in the garage, the sleepless nights, the impossible problems solved through sheer determination. The audience ate it up. They always did. People loved the garage genius story. It was the Silicon Valley creation myth, and Trey delivered it with practiced ease. But talk is cheap, Trey said, building to his transition. You didn't come here to listen to my journey. You came here to see if Volcor actually works. Applause rippled through the crowd. So let me show you, Trey said, gesturing to the massive screen behind him. What you're about to see is a live demonstration, not pre-recorded, not scripted. Live. Layla noticed his emphasis on live and suppressed a smile. Marcus had been right. Trey had clearly considered faking the demo, but someone had talked him out of it, probably his new PR team, who would know that tech journalists would immediately call out a fake demonstration. I've invited some special guests to join me on stage, Trey continued. three of the world's leading cybersecurity experts. They're going to try to break Vault Core in real time. With the world watching, three people walked out on stage. Layla recognized them all. Carlos Mendez from MIT's cybersecurity lab, Sarah Chen from Google's security division, and David Kumar, a former NSA cryptographer turned white hat hacker. They were legitimate experts, not actors. Trey had actually arranged for real security professionals to attack his system. Either he was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Layla suspected the latter. These experts, Trey said, gesturing to them, have been given full access to Vault Core's external interfaces. They've had 72 hours to study the system, probe for weaknesses, and develop attack strategies. Now, they're going to execute those attacks while you watch. The screen split into 4 sections. 3 showed the workstations of the security experts, their screens visible to the audience. The 4th showed Vault Core's security dashboard, a real-time visualization of the system's status. Everything was green, all systems nominal, encryption active, no breaches detected. "Let's begin," Trey said, stepping back to give the experts room. Carlos went first. He'd developed a brute force attack using distributed computing, thousands of processors attempting millions of password combinations per second. It was crude but powerful. The audience watched as his attack launched. Numbers scrolled across his screen at impossible speeds. On the Vault Core dashboard, a small yellow warning appeared. Brute force attempt detected. But the system held. The encryption didn't crack. After 5 minutes, Carlos shook his head. No penetration. The quantum-resistant algorithms are blocking every conventional approach. Applause from the crowd. Trey smiled, some of his confidence returning. Sarah Chen went next. Her approach was more sophisticated, a timing attack that analyzed the minuscule delays in Vault Core's encryption processes to reverse engineer the key structure. It was elegant, subtle, the kind of attack that had broken lesser systems. The dashboard flickered. More yellow warnings. Timing analysis, detected, countermeasures, engaged. For a moment, it looked like Sarah might be getting somewhere. Her screen showed patterns emerging, data points clustering in ways that suggested a vulnerability. But then Vault Core's adaptive defenses kicked in. The system randomized its timing, introduced false delays, scrambled the patterns Sarah was tracking. After 10 minutes, she also conceded defeat. "Impressive," she said, and she sounded genuinely surprised. "The adaptive response is something I've never seen before. Whoever designed this is a genius." Trey's smile widened. He was playing to the crowd now, his confidence building with each successful defense. He'd almost forgotten that Layla was in the audience. David Kumar was last. He'd saved the most aggressive attack for final, a combination of SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and buffer overflow attacks, all coordinated to hit Vault Core simultaneously from multiple vectors. This was the kind of attack that would either expose fundamental architectural flaws or prove that the system was truly robust. David's fingers flew across his keyboard. Code streamed across his screen. The Vault Core dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Red warnings everywhere. Multi-vector attack detected. Critical defense protocol engaged. The audience leaned forward. This looked serious. For 30 seconds, the system struggled. The green status indicators flickered between green and yellow. Data streams stuttered. One security module briefly showed red before recovering. Layla watched the clock. She knew exactly when the temporary encryption key would fail. She'd designed the degradation curve herself. It should hold for another minute, maybe 90 seconds. But then something unexpected happened. The system stabilized. David's attacks were being repelled. The red warnings turned yellow, then green. The dashboard showed full integrity restored. Layla frowned. That shouldn't have worked. Unless... She pulled out her phone and quickly accessed her private monitoring system. She'd built a backdoor into Vault Core, not to sabotage it, but to observe its performance remotely. What she saw made her eyes widen. Someone had patched the system. In the last 6 hours, new code had been added. Not elegant code. It was crude, held together with digital duct tape, but functional enough to buy some time. The temporary key hadn't been replaced, but it had been reinforced with external validation checks that reduced the stress on the core encryption. Trey hadn't done this. He wasn't capable. Someone else had helped him. On stage, David Kumar was admitting defeat. I can't break it. Whatever Vault Core is using, it's beyond my current toolkit. The audience erupted in applause. Trey was beaming now, soaking in the adulation. The three security experts shook his hand, congratulated him, validated his genius. Layla's mind raced. Who had helped him? How had they accessed the code? Had Trey actually succeeded in hiring a skilled hacker? But then she noticed something on her monitoring screen. The patches were failing. Not immediately, not catastrophically, but degrading. Whoever had added them had bought Trey maybe an hour of stability. After that, the temporary key would expire and the crude patches would collapse. The demonstration was scheduled to last another 45 minutes. Trey was supposed to show real-world applications, encrypt actual data, prove that Vault Core worked in practical scenarios. He had just enough rope to hang himself with. Now for the real test, Trey announced, riding high on his apparent success. We're going to encrypt actual sensitive data, live, on stage. He gestured to a laptop that was brought out. This contains medical records from a hospital database, 10,000 patient records with names, addresses, medical histories, social security numbers, everything a hacker would want. The audience grew quiet. This was serious. If Vault Core failed now, real people's data would be exposed. I'm going to encrypt this database using Vault Core, Trey said. Then I'm going to give these three experts full access to the encrypted file. If they can decrypt even one patient record, Vault Core fails. It was a bold move. Possibly too bold. Layla could see the PR team in the wings looking nervous. But Trey was committed now. He inserted a USB drive into the laptop, launched Vault Core, and began the encryption process. The massive screen showed the encryption progress bar. It moved smoothly at first. 10%, 20%, 30%. At 40%, it stuttered. Just for a second. Most of the audience didn't notice. But Layla saw it. So did Carlos Mendez, whose eyes narrowed. 50%, 60%. Another stutter, longer this time. Trey's smile faltered. He glanced at the laptop screen, confusion crossing his face. 70%. The progress bar froze completely for 3 full seconds. Nervous murmurs from the audience. The tech journalists were typing furiously on their phones. The bar jumped to 85%, skipping 15% entirely. That was wrong. That was very wrong. 90%. The system seemed to recover, moving smoothly toward completion. At 98%, the laptop screen flashed red. Error. Encryption, key validation failed. The message appeared on both the laptop and the massive screen behind Trey, blown up for 5,000 people to see. Trey's face went white. He clicked frantically on the laptop. It's a minor glitch. Let me restart the process. But when he tried, Vault Core wouldn't launch. The application icon bounced once and died. A technical difficulties, Trey said, his voice tight. Can we get the backup laptop? A stagehand brought out another laptop. Trey loaded Vault Core again. This time it launched, but the interface was glitchy. Buttons appeared and disappeared. Text overlapped itself. This is just the presentation environment, Trey explained, desperation creeping into his voice. Vegas Wi-Fi, you know how it is. The actual system is perfectly stable. He tried the encryption again. This time it got to 30% before crashing completely. The laptop screen went blue, the dreaded blue screen of death. Critical error, core system failure, memory dump initiated. The audience was no longer murmuring. They were gasping. Some were laughing nervously. The tech journalists looked like sharks smelling blood in the water. David Kumar stepped forward. Mr. Vance, if the system is unstable, we should postpone the demonstration. There's no shame in technical difficulties during a live demo. It was a kind offer. An escape route. Trey could take it, reschedule, save some face. But Trey's ego wouldn't let him. No, it's fine. This is just the presentation setup. Let me show you the cloud-based version. That's where the real power is anyway. He pulled up a browser and navigated to Vault Core's web interface. For a moment, it looked like it might work. The login screen appeared clean and professional. Trey entered his credentials. The screen went black. Then, slowly, text began appearing. White text on a black background, like something from a horror movie. System integrity compromised. Encryption key expired. Core protocols failing. Vault core status, critical failure. And then, in larger text that filled the screen, unable to verify creator authenticity. System requires master key authorization. Please contact Dr. Layla Vance. The audience exploded. Some people were standing now, trying to see better. Phones were everywhere, recording the disaster. The tech journalists weren't even pretending to be professional anymore. They were live tweeting the meltdown in real time. Trey stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. His carefully constructed world was collapsing in the most public way possible. "This is sabotage," he finally managed to say. "Someone hacked the system. This isn't a real failure. This is corporate sabotage." "Mr. Vance," Sarah Chen said carefully, "if your system can be sabotaged this easily, that's a failure in itself." "It wasn't easy," Trey shouted. "It was someone with inside knowledge, someone who knows the system intimately." "You mean the person who built it?" Carlos Mendez asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Trey looked out at the audience, searching for something, support, sympathy, an escape route. His eyes found Layla. She sat perfectly still, her expression neutral, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't celebrating. She was simply watching, waiting. "Her," Trey said, pointing at Layla. "Dr. Layla Vance. She sabotaged this demonstration. She has access to the core systems. She did this deliberately to make me look bad." All eyes turned to Layla. She stood slowly, gracefully. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the room without any microphone. She'd learned projection techniques in graduate school, for teaching. "Mr. Vance, you're absolutely right. I do have access to Vault Core's core systems, because I built them. Every line of code, every encryption algorithm, every security protocol." The room erupted in chaos. Trey was screaming now, incoherent with rage and panic. "She's lying. She helped, maybe, but I have the complete development history," Layla continued, speaking over him. 5 years of documentation, GitHub commits, email chains with peer reviewers, independent verification from MIT faculty, patent filing timestamps, financial records showing I received 65 cents per hour for doctoral-level cryptographic work. She pulled out her phone and gestured. On the massive screen behind Trey, the error message disappeared. In its place appeared a document. The fraudulent intellectual property transfer that Trey had tricked her into signing. "I also have this," Layla said. "The document Mr. Vance used to steal my work. The document he's been using to claim Vault Core as his creation." The audience was dead silent now. 5,000 people holding their collective breath. "Vault Core is failing," Layla said, "because the temporary encryption key I embedded has expired. It was designed to expire exactly 45 days after activation. Mr. Vance activated it 45 days ago when he stole my code. The system is failing because he doesn't have the master key. He doesn't have it because he didn't build the system. He doesn't understand it. He can't fix it. He can't maintain it. He can't even explain how it works." She looked directly at Trey. "Can you, Trey? Can you explain even the basic architecture? The quantum-resistant elliptic curve implementation, the recursive authentication cascade, anything?" Trey's mouth worked, but no sound came out. "I didn't think so," Layla said softly. She turned back to the audience. "I want to be very clear about something. Vault Core works. The technology is sound. The encryption is unbreakable. The security is revolutionary. Everything Mr. Vance promised about the product is true. He just wasn't the one who created those promises. I was." Mr. Sterling stood now, adding his voice. "Sterling Ventures is prepared to verify every claim Dr. Vance has made. We have independent auditors, technical experts, legal documentation, everything will be made public. Patricia Webb stood as well. We're also prepared to file criminal charges against Mr. Vance for fraud, theft of intellectual property, and securities violations. However, Dr. Vance has requested that we offer Mr. Vance one final opportunity. All eyes went back to Layla. The deal we made stands, she said. Public failure, public confession. You tell everyone here, everyone watching online, everyone in the press, exactly what you did, how you stole my work, how you lied about building it, how you got caught. You do that now, and I'll advocate for leniency. Civil settlement instead of criminal charges. She paused. Or you can keep lying, keep claiming I'm sabotaging you, keep insisting you built VaultCore, and I will bury you under so much evidence, so much documentation, so much proof that you'll be fighting lawsuits for the rest of your life. The silence was absolute. Trey looked around wildly, at the security experts on stage, who were watching him with a mixture of pity and disgust, at the audience, whose phones were all pointed at him, recording every second, at the exits where Sterling's security team had appeared, blocking any escape. Finally, he looked at Vanessa. She wasn't there. The seat she'd supposedly reserved in the front row was empty. She'd left before the demonstration even started. She'd known it would end this way. Trey's shoulders slumped. All the air went out of him at once, like a balloon deflating. I stole it, he said quietly. Louder, Layla said. Not cruel, just firm. I stole it, Trey screamed. And then he was crying, ugly sobs that distorted his face. Layla built VaultCore. All of it. Every line of code. I did nothing. I lied to investors. I lied to the press. I lied to everyone. I stole 5 years of her work and claimed it was mine because I wanted to be important. I wanted to be a genius. I wanted to matter. He collapsed to his knees on the stage. And I'm not, he sobbed. I'm not a genius. I'm not important. I'm just nothing. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. Layla walked up onto the stage. She stood over Trey for a long moment, looking down at the broken man who'd once called her invisible. Then she pulled out her phone one more time. VaultCore, she said clearly. Authorization code Alpha 77 Charlie Vance Layla. Master key authentication. The laptop screen flickered. The error messages disappeared. The VaultCore interface returned, clean and stable and perfect. Layla looked out at the audience. The system works. It always worked. It just needed the person who actually built it to authorize it. She typed a few commands, and the medical database encryption completed in seconds. Then she handed Carlos Mendez the encrypted file. Try to crack it, she said. For real this time. Not a demonstration, a real attempt. Take a month if you need to. You won't succeed, but you're welcome to try. Carlos took the file, his eyes wide with respect. Dr. Vance, I'd be honored. Layla nodded. Then she addressed the whole room one final time. VaultCore will launch in 3 months under new leadership. Mine. Sterling Ventures will remain our primary investor. The technology will protect millions of people's data. And every single person who contributed to its development will be properly credited and compensated. She gestured to where Marcus and his team sat. Starting with the developers who worked with Mr. Vance, they did nothing wrong. They'll be joining my team at full salary, with bonuses, and with my personal apology for the chaos they endured. Marcus and his team looked stunned. The garage genius story is a myth, Layla said. Innovation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens through collaboration, peer review, testing, and the hard work of many talented people. VaultCore is mine because I led that work, but it will succeed because of everyone who contributes to it going forward. She looked down at Trey one last time. Take him away, she said quietly to the security team. As they helped Trey to his feet and escorted him off stage, Layla stood alone in the spotlight. The applause started slowly. 1 person, then 10, then 100. Within seconds, all 5,000 people were on their feet, clapping, cheering, celebrating not just the technology, but the truth. Layla closed her eyes and let herself feel it. Not triumph, not revenge, Justice. The standing ovation continued for nearly 2 full minutes. Layla stood on that stage, letting the applause wash over her, but her mind was already moving forward. This wasn't the end. This was barely the beginning. Mr. Sterling joined her on stage, and the applause somehow grew even louder. He raised his hands for silence, and gradually, the crowd settled. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling began, his voice carrying the authority of 50 years in venture capital. "What you've just witnessed is unprecedented. Not the technology, though that's remarkable. What's unprecedented is watching truth triumph over deception in real time." He turned to Layla. "Dr. Vance has demonstrated not only technical brilliance, but moral courage. She could have taken the easy route, filed lawsuits quietly, settled behind closed doors. Instead, she insisted on transparency, on accountability, on making sure that what happened to her never happens to another innovator." Sterling gestured to the audience. "How many of you are developers, engineers, creators?" Thousands of hands went up. "How many of you have had your work stolen, minimized, or claimed by someone else?" The hands stayed up. Some new ones joined them. "This is for all of you," Sterling said. "This is what happens when we stop accepting that theft as just business. When we demand attribution, when we fight back." He pulled out a document. "Effective immediately. Sterling Ventures is announcing a new initiative, the Vance Protocol, named after Dr. Layla Vance. It's a comprehensive framework for protecting intellectual property in collaborative environments. We're offering it free to any startup, any developer, any creator who wants protection." Applause again, but Sterling wasn't finished. "We're also establishing a legal defense fund, $5 million to start. Any developer who has their work stolen can apply for legal assistance. We'll help you fight back. We'll help you prove your creation. We'll make sure the thieves face consequences." The applause was deafening now. Layla felt tears threatening but forced them back. Not yet. There was still more to do. A woman in the front row raised her hand. She was young, maybe 25, with nervous energy radiating off her. Sterling nodded to her. "Dr. Vance," the woman said, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm a developer at a small startup. My CEO keeps taking my ideas and presenting them as his own in board meetings. I've been too afraid to speak up because I need the job. What should I do?" The question hung in the air. 5,000 people waited for Layla's answer. Layla stepped forward, looking directly at the young woman. "Document everything. Every idea, every contribution, every meeting. Email yourself copies. Use version control with timestamps. Create a paper trail that's impossible to deny." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "But also understand something important. Being right isn't always enough. Having proof isn't always enough. You need allies. You need people who will back you up when you speak out." Layla gestured to Marcus and his development team. These developers saw what was happening. They documented the truth. When the moment came, they were willing to testify. Find your Marcuses. Build your network of people who value integrity. Another hand went up. An older man, maybe 60, with the weathered look of someone who'd been in tech since before it was called tech. "Dr. Vance, I respect what you've done here, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Mr. Vance did bring in the funding. He did create the business structure. Doesn't he deserve some credit for that? Isn't technical creation only part of what makes a company successful?" It was a fair question. Uncomfortable, but fair. Layla appreciated it. "You're absolutely right," she said, surprising some people. "Technical innovation alone doesn't create a successful company. You need business development, marketing, sales, operations. Trey wasn't wrong to say we needed someone to handle those aspects." She walked to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience. Where Trey went wrong was in believing that his contributions made him more valuable than mine, that the vision guy mattered more than the execution girl, that bringing in money entitled him to claim credit for creation. Layla's voice hardened. If Trey had been honest from the start, if he'd said, "My brilliant wife created this revolutionary technology and I helped bring it to market," we'd be partners right now. He'd be a respected CEO. We'd both be successful. But he couldn't do that. He needed to be the genius. He needed the world to believe he built something he couldn't even understand. She looked directly at the older man who'd asked the question. Business contributions matter. But they don't justify theft. They don't justify fraud. And they don't justify erasing someone else's existence from the story. A tech journalist from Wired stood up. Dr. Vance, can you walk us through the technical specifics of how you sabotaged the demonstration? I'm hearing the term time bomb being used on Twitter. Layla smiled. I didn't sabotage anything. I built a security feature. VaultCore requires regular authentication from its creator to ensure it hasn't been stolen or compromised. It's actually a brilliant anti-theft mechanism. If someone steals the code, it stops working after a set period unless they can provide master key authorization. She let that sink in. What Trey experienced wasn't sabotage. It was copy protection, the same kind of copy protection that prevents people from pirating software. His failure to authenticate proves he didn't create the system. The journalist followed up. Will VaultCore have this feature in its commercial release? Won't that concern customers? No, Layla said. The commercial version will have different authentication protocols tied to the legitimate owner, the customer, but the master development key stays with me. If someone tries to steal VaultCore's core algorithms, the same thing will happen to them that happened to Trey. Another journalist stood. What happens to Trey now? Are you pressing charges? Layla looked at Mr. Sterling, who stepped forward to answer. That's complicated, Sterling said. Dr. Vance has the right to pursue criminal charges for fraud, theft of intellectual property, and other violations. Our legal team has recommended she do so. However, Dr. Vance has asked for leniency. The crowd murmured. After everything Trey had done, she was showing mercy. Not forgiveness, Layla clarified quickly. Leniency. There's a difference. Trey will sign a comprehensive settlement agreement. He'll surrender all claims to VaultCore and any related intellectual property. He'll pay restitution for the salary I should have received. He'll issue a public statement acknowledging his fraud. And he'll be barred from working in the tech industry in any executive capacity for 10 years. She paused. But I won't push for jail time. Not because he deserves mercy, but because I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in moving forward. A woman from TechCrunch asked the question everyone was thinking. Dr. Vance, how does it feel to go from homeless to CEO in just a few months? Layla took a long breath. It feels incomplete. Yes, I've reclaimed my work. Yes, I've exposed the fraud. Yes, I'm now running the company. But there's still a part of me that's angry, that wants to have never gone through this in the first place. She looked out at the sea of faces. I lost 5 years believing in a partnership that was a lie. I lost my marriage. I lost my sense of trust in people. Those things don't come back just because I won the legal battle. The room had gone very quiet. But what I gained, Layla continued, her voice stronger, is clarity. I know exactly what I'm capable of. I know I don't need anyone to validate my genius. I know that my work speaks for itself. And I know that there are people, like Mr. Sterling, like Marcus and his team, like all of you who are standing and applauding truth, who value integrity over charisma. She smiled, and it was genuine. So yes, it feels good. But more importantly, it feels like the beginning of something better than what I lost. Sarah Chen, the Google security expert, raised her hand. Dr. Vance, I'd like to formally apologize. During my attack demonstration, I said, whoever designed this is a genius. I was looking at Mr. Vance when I said it. I assumed he was the creator. I should have done my research. You couldn't have known, Layla said graciously. Trey was very convincing. That's what good con artists do. Still, Sarah insisted, I contributed to the narrative that erased you. I'm sorry for that. And I'd like to make amends. Google would like to partner with VaultCore for our enterprise security solutions. If you're interested. The room erupted again. A partnership with Google would legitimize VaultCore instantly and be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Layla looked at Mr. Sterling, who nodded enthusiastically. We're very interested, Layla said. Let's talk. Carlos Mendez stood as well. MIT would like to offer you a position, Dr. Vance. adjunct professor of cryptographic systems. You could finish your PhD, teach, and continue developing Vault Core. We'd be honored to have you back. David Kumar joined in. And the NSA, off the record, would like to discuss Vault Core's applications in national security. I'm not authorized to make official offers, but there's significant interest at the highest levels. Layla held up her hands, overwhelmed. I appreciate all of this. Truly. But right now, I need to focus on one thing, making Vault Core the best product it can be. Everything else can wait. A voice called out from the back of the room. What about Vanessa? Everyone turned. The question hung awkwardly in the air. Layla sighed. Vanessa was a victim too. Maybe not in the same way I was, but Trey lied to her. He used her. She thought she was building a life with a successful entrepreneur. Instead, she got a fraud who's now facing financial ruin. She paused. I don't forgive her for sleeping with my husband, for moving into my house, for playing the role of the perfect tech wife while I was homeless, but I also don't hate her. She's 26 years old. She made mistakes. She's learning from them. That's enough. She actually came to see me, Layla added. Yesterday, before the demonstration. She wanted to warn me that Trey might try something desperate. She didn't have to do that, but she did. That counts for something. A young man in a hoodie stood up. Dr. Vance, I'm a computer science student. You're kind of my hero right now. Do you have any advice for aspiring developers? Layla smiled at him. Keep detailed records of everything you create. Use version control religiously. Never sign anything without reading it carefully, and having a lawyer read it too. Trust people, but verify everything. And most importantly, know your worth. Don't let anyone convince you that your technical skills are less valuable than their business skills. Innovation is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. She thought for a moment. And one more thing. Don't work alone in a garage. That's a myth. Work with peers, get feedback, collaborate, share credit, build things together. Real innovation happens in community, not isolation. The young man sat down, typing furiously on his phone, probably tweeting every word. Mr. Sterling checked his watch. We should probably wrap up. Dr. Vance has a full schedule. Interviews, meetings with legal teams, and about 50 phone calls to return. But Layla held up her hand. One more question. Last one. An older woman stood. She wore a business suit and carried herself with quiet authority. Dr. Vance, I'm a patent attorney. I've been working in intellectual property law for 30 years. I've seen countless cases like yours, women whose work was stolen by male partners, colleagues, or employers. Most of them never get their work back. They settle quietly, sign NDAs, and disappear from the industry. The woman's voice was thick with emotion. You fought back. You won. You did it publicly. Do you have any idea how many women you've just inspired? How many developers who've been thinking maybe it's not worth fighting are now reconsidering? It wasn't really a question. It was a statement, but it demanded a response. Layla felt the tears she'd been holding back finally start to fall. She didn't wipe them away. I fought back because I had nothing left to lose, she said honestly. When you're sleeping in your car in February, eating ramen for every meal, you hit a point where the worst has already happened. What else can they take from you? Your dignity. They already tried. Your credibility. Already gone. Your future. Might as well fight for it because it can't get much worse. She took a shaky breath. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about what I'd lost and started being about what I could build. Not just Vault Core the product, but Vault Core the statement. The proof that theft doesn't win. That fraud gets exposed. That the truth, even if it takes time, eventually comes out. Layla looked directly at the older woman. If my story inspires even one person to document their work, to stand up to a thief, to demand credit for their creation, then everything I went through was worth it. Every night in that car, every humiliation, every moment I thought I couldn't go on, worth it. The standing ovation this time was different. It wasn't celebration, it was solidarity. 5,000 people standing not to applaud a victory, but to acknowledge a truth they'd all felt at some point. The system was broken, but it could be fixed. One case at a time. One person brave enough to fight back at a time. When the applause finally died down, Layla stepped back from the microphone. Mr. Sterling took over, announcing that detailed press releases would be available within the hour, that VaultCore's official relaunch would be in 90 days, and that Dr. Layla Vance was now accepting speaking engagements. As the crowd began to disperse, people rushed the stage, developers wanting to shake Layla's hand, journalists requesting exclusive interviews, investors trying to get a moment of her time. Sterling's security team had to form a perimeter to prevent her from being overwhelmed. But through the chaos, Layla saw one person standing still near the exit. Marcus, her lead developer. The one who'd documented everything. The one who'd believed her when he had no reason to. She pushed through the crowd and walked over to him. "Thank you," she said simply. Marcus shrugged, embarrassed. "I didn't do anything special. I just told the truth." "You did everything," Layla corrected. "Without your documentation, without your testimony, this would have been my word against his. You gave me proof. You gave me credibility." She pulled out a business card. "I meant what I said up there. You and your team are hired. Double whatever Trey was paying you, plus equity in VaultCore, plus bonuses. I take care of people who take care of me." Marcus looked at the card, then at her. "Why me?" "You could hire anyone now. Top developers from any company in the world would work for you." "Because you believed me when it mattered," Layla said. "Because you have integrity. Because I can trust you. Those things matter more than credentials." She smiled. "Also, you understand my code better than almost anyone. It would take months to train someone new. So really, I'm being selfish." Marcus laughed, the tension breaking. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow," Layla said. "We have 90 days to prepare for a real launch. Think you can handle it?" "With the actual creator of VaultCore leading the team?" Marcus said. "Yeah, I think we can handle it." As Layla finally left the ballroom, escorted by Sterling's security team through a side exit to avoid the press mob, she allowed herself one glance back at the stage where Trey had fallen apart. The stage was empty now. The screens were dark. The dramatic lighting was off. It looked smaller somehow, less impressive. Trey had wanted to stand on that stage as a genius, as a visionary, as someone who mattered. Instead, he'd stood there as a cautionary tale. And Layla, she'd stood there as herself, finally, completely, unapologetically. That was enough. 3 months later, Layla stood in the lobby of Sterling Ventures' San Francisco headquarters, looking at the wall that had been empty when she'd first visited. Now it displayed a massive photo. Her, standing in front of the VaultCore logo, arms crossed, eyes sharp and confident. Underneath, a plaque read, "Dr. Layla Vance, founder and CEO, VaultCore Security Systems." Founder, not co-founder, not developer. Founder. The word still felt surreal sometimes. Her assistant, a brilliant young woman named Priya, who'd transferred from Google specifically to work with Layla, appeared with a tablet. "Your 9 o'clock is here. Forbes photo shoot for the cover story. They want you in the server room first, then the executive office, then some candid shots in the development lab." Layla checked her reflection in the glass wall. Navy blazer, crisp white shirt, designer glasses. Her hair was styled in that geometric cut that had become her signature look. She looked powerful, successful. Nothing like the woman who'd slept in a Honda Civic just months ago. "Let's do this," she said. The photographer was an energetic woman in her 30s who immediately started directing Layla into positions. "Give me confidence. Give me intelligence. You're not just a CEO. You're a revolutionary. You changed the entire conversation about intellectual property theft. Show me that power." Layla posed in front of server racks, her hand resting on the machines that now ran the fully functional, commercially launched VaultCore. The system that had been called vaporware 3 months ago was now protecting data for 17 Fortune 500 companies, 3 government agencies, and over 2 million individual users. The revenue projections for the first year were staggering. "Can we get a shot of you coding?" the photographer asked. "The article mentions you still write code yourself, even as CEO. That's unique." Layla sat at a workstation and pulled up an actual project she'd been working on, an upgrade to Vault Core's quantum resistance protocols. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Completely natural, completely authentic. This wasn't performance. This was who she was. Perfect, the photographer murmured, snapping away. The genius at work. This is the shot. This is the cover. After an hour of photos, Layla sat down with the Forbes journalist, a sharp-eyed man named Robert Chen who'd been covering the tech industry for 20 years. Dr. Vance, he began, 3 months ago, you were homeless. Today, you're on the cover of Forbes with a net worth estimated at over $300 million. How does that feel? Layla considered the question. Surreal, validating, terrifying. All of those things at once. Terrifying? Robert asked, surprised. I have 800 employees now, Layla explained. They depend on me. Their families depend on me. If I make a mistake, if Vault Core fails, it's not just me who suffers. That's a weight I take very seriously. She leaned forward. When it was just me in a garage, failure only affected me. Now, every decision ripples out to hundreds of people. That's terrifying in the best possible way. It keeps me sharp. Let's talk about Trey Vance, Robert said, pulling out his notes. He signed a comprehensive settlement agreement. He's barred from the tech industry. He's working as a sales associate at a car dealership in Sacramento. Do you ever feel guilty about how far he fell? Layla didn't hesitate. No. The bluntness seemed to surprise Robert. Trey made choices, Layla continued. He chose to steal my work. He chose to lie to investors. He chose to kick me out of my own house and move his mistress in. He chose to claim genius for work he couldn't even understand. Every consequence he's facing is a direct result of those choices. She softened slightly. Do I take pleasure in his suffering? No. I'm not cruel. But do I feel responsible for it? Absolutely not. He destroyed his own life. I just refuse to let him destroy mine in the process. You've become an icon for women in tech, Robert said. Especially women whose work has been minimized or stolen. That comes with a lot of pressure. How do you handle it? Layla smiled. I remind myself that I'm not perfect. I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who fought back when fighting back was the only option left. If that inspires people, wonderful. But I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I'm just trying to build a good company and treat people fairly. She paused. Although I will say this, the number of women who've contacted me with their own stories of stolen work is staggering. Absolutely staggering. We've received over 3,000 applications to the Vance Protocol Legal Defense Fund. 3,000 developers who've had their work stolen and need help fighting back. Can the fund handle that many cases? Robert asked. Not yet, Layla admitted. But we're expanding. Mr. Sterling increased the initial funding to $20 million. We're partnering with law schools to provide pro bono legal assistance. We're creating a database of technical experts who can testify in IP theft cases. We're building an entire infrastructure to fight this problem systematically. Robert scribbled notes furiously. You're essentially creating a legal army. I'm creating a support system, Layla corrected, because the current system is broken. Patent law is complicated, expensive, intimidating. Most developers can't afford to fight back even when they have ironclad proof. We're changing that. What about Vanessa? Robert asked, changing subjects. She's been very quiet since the Vegas demonstration. Have you spoken to her? Once, Layla said. About a month ago. She called to apologize. Really apologize. Not just the performative kind. She admitted she'd been willfully ignorant about where Trey's genius came from. She said she wanted to believe in the fairy tale of the tech entrepreneur boyfriend so badly that she ignored all the red flags. How did you respond? Robert asked. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that I wasn't interested in a friendship, Layla said honestly. She hurt me, even if she didn't fully understand what she was doing. I can forgive that intellectually, but I can't forget it emotionally. We'll probably never speak again, and I'm okay with that. She added, though I did hear she went back to school. She's getting her MBA, apparently, focusing on business ethics. Maybe she learned something from all this. Robert checked his notes. Let's talk about the future. Vault Core is incredibly successful, but you're not resting on your laurels. I'm hearing rumors about Vault Core 2.0. Neural encryption, biometric integration. What can you tell me? Layla's eyes lit up, the expression of someone talking about work they genuinely loved. Vault Core was designed to be quantum resistant, which is crucial as quantum computing advances. But 2.0 is about making security seamless. Right now, encryption requires user action, passwords, keys, authentication. What if your unique biological patterns were the key? Your heartbeat rhythm, your typing cadence, the way your eyes move when you read? She gestured enthusiastically. Imagine security so personalized, so integrated with who you are physically, that it's literally impossible to steal. Not just hard, impossible. That's what we're building. When will that be ready? Robert asked. 2 years, Layla said. Maybe 3. We're not rushing. We're doing it right. Every line of code reviewed, tested, verified. No shortcuts. Robert smiled. No shortcuts. Is that the lesson you took from the Trey situation? One of them, Layla said. The other lesson is simpler. Document everything. Every email I send, every decision I make, every line of code I write. It's all documented, time-stamped, verified. No one will ever be able to claim my work again. There was a knock on the conference room door. Priya poked her head in. Dr. Vance, the MIT contingent is here for your 2 o'clock. Layla stood, extending her hand to Robert. Thank you for your time. I think we're done here. Just one more question, Robert said quickly. If you could go back and change what happened, prevent Trey from stealing your work, avoid the homelessness, skip all the pain, would you? Layla thought about it for a long moment. No, she said finally. Because the woman who trusted Trey wouldn't have built what I've built now. She was brilliant, sure. But she was naive. She believed in partnership without protection. She thought good work spoke for itself. She didn't understand how cruel the world could be. She looked out the window at the San Francisco skyline. The woman I am now? She documents everything. She trusts strategically. She understands that brilliance without protection is just brilliance waiting to be stolen. I wouldn't have learned those lessons without going through hell first. So the suffering was worth it? Robert asked. The suffering sucked, Layla said bluntly. But the growth that came from it, that was worth everything. The MIT meeting was a reunion of sorts. Professor Richard Chen, who'd reviewed Layla's work throughout Vault Core's development, was there. So was the dean of the computer science department. They wanted Layla to deliver the keynote address at commencement. We'd be honored to have you speak to our graduates, the dean said. You represent everything we try to teach: technical excellence, ethical integrity, resilience in the face of adversity. Layla accepted immediately. I'd love to. MIT gave me the foundation for everything I've built. I owe the school a debt I can never fully repay. Professor Chen smiled. You've already repaid it. Do you know how many applications we've received this year citing you as their inspiration? Young women who want to study cryptography because they read about Dr. Layla Vance reclaiming her stolen work. You've become a symbol? I'm just a developer who refused to quit, Layla said, uncomfortable with the praise. You're more than that, Chen said gently. And the sooner you accept that, the more effectively you can use your platform. That evening, Layla returned to her apartment, a beautiful space in Pacific Heights with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. She'd bought it outright, no mortgage, paid in cash from her first major paycheck as CEO. It was a far cry from the Honda Civic. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat on her balcony, watching the sun set over the bay. Her phone buzzed constantly. Emails, messages, notifications. She ignored them all for a moment, just breathing in the salt air and the reality of where she was. Her laptop was open on the coffee table inside. She could see the Forbes article draft that Robert had sent for her approval. The headline read, "From Garage to Glory, How Dr. Layla Vance Reclaimed Her Genius and Revolutionized Tech Security." It was a good headline, accurate, Inspiring, even. But what caught her eye was the sidebar, a small section titled, "Where Are They Now?" Trey Vance, working in automotive sales, declined to comment for this article. Vanessa Morrison, enrolled in Stanford's MBA program, declined to comment for this article. Marcus Webb, lead developer, Vault Core Security Systems, quote, "Working with Dr. Vance is a masterclass in both technical excellence and ethical leadership. She's the real deal." Mr. Sterling, chairman, Sterling Ventures, quote, "Investing in Layla Vance wasn't just good business, it was a moral imperative. Fraud should never be rewarded. Genius should never be stolen." Layla approved the article and sent it back. Then she did something she hadn't allowed herself to do in months. She opened a folder on her laptop labeled, "Personal, the Old Days." Inside were photos from her marriage to Trey, their wedding, holidays. The day they'd moved into the house together, in every photo, Layla looked happy, hopeful, in love. She studied the images, trying to reconcile that woman with who she was now. "I'm sorry you got hurt," she whispered to her past self. "But I promise, it gets better. So much better." She closed the folder and opened a new one. This one was labeled Vault Core 2.0 Neural Encryption. She had work to do. 6 months after the Vegas demonstration, Forbes published their cover. Layla's face looked out from every newsstand in America, with the cover line, "The $300 million Comeback, How Layla Vance Became Tech's Most Inspiring CEO." The article went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 1 million times. Think pieces sprouted across the internet. The Vance effect became a trending topic. LinkedIn was flooded with posts from developers sharing their own stories of stolen work, many crediting Layla's example with giving them the courage to speak up. 3 major lawsuits were filed that week alone, developers suing former partners for IP theft, directly citing the Vance case as precedent. The revolution Layla had started wasn't just about her anymore, it was a movement. One morning, Layla received an unexpected package, no return address, just her name and office address. Inside was a single item, her old MIT thesis, the one she'd abandoned to work on Vault Core. Someone had found it, printed it, bound it professionally. Attached was a note in handwriting she didn't recognize. "You were already a genius before Vault Core. You were already brilliant before the headlines. Never forget that. Your worth isn't in what you build, it's in who you are." A fellow survivor. Layla put the thesis on her bookshelf, right next to the patent for Vault Core that now bore her name, and only her name as inventor. That afternoon, she had a video call with a high school in Oakland. They'd asked if she could speak to their computer science class. 30 teenagers appeared on her screen, mostly girls, mostly from backgrounds similar to her own. "Dr. Vance," one girl asked shyly, "how did you know you were smart enough to build something like Vault Core? Like, how did you have the confidence?" Layla smiled. "I didn't. I had doubts every day. Every time I hit a problem I couldn't immediately solve. A voice in my head said, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe this is too hard. Maybe you should quit." The girls leaned closer to their cameras. "But here's what I learned," Layla continued. "That voice is lying. It's not truth, it's fear. And fear is just your brain trying to protect you from failure. But failure is how you learn. Every bug I couldn't fix taught me something. Every algorithm that didn't work pushed me to find one that did." She paused. "So I didn't need confidence. I needed stubbornness. I needed the refusal to quit. Confidence came later, after I'd proven to myself that I could solve the impossible problems." Another girl raised her hand. "What would you tell someone whose ideas keep getting stolen by someone louder than them?" "Document everything," Layla said immediately. "Every idea, every contribution, every moment. Make it impossible for someone to erase you. And if they try anyway, fight back. The world needs your genius more than it needs their volume." When the call ended, Layla sat back in her chair, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, not happiness. That was too simple. Not satisfaction. There was still too much work to do. Peace. The quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, that every horrible thing that had happened had led her to this moment, that the woman who'd cried herself to sleep in a broken-down Honda had transformed into someone who could change the world. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Sterling. Board meeting in 20. And congratulations. Vault Core just hit 1B valuation. You're officially a unicorn. Layla laughed. A unicorn. A mythical creature. Something people didn't think could exist. How appropriate. She grabbed her laptop, her phone, and the leather portfolio that had become her signature accessory. As she walked through the Vault Core offices, employees greeted her warmly, not with fear or intimidation, but with genuine respect. She'd built a company culture based on attribution, collaboration, and ethical treatment. Every employee's contributions were acknowledged publicly. Every developer got credit for their code. Every idea was traced back to its originator. It made for slower decision-making sometimes, more meetings, more documentation. But it also meant that what happened to her would never happen to anyone at Vault Core. Never again. As Layla entered the boardroom, she caught her reflection in the glass wall one more time. The woman looking back at her was powerful, brilliant, successful. But more than that, she was free. Free from the weight of stolen credit, free from the fear of invisibility, free from the need to shrink herself to make someone else feel bigger. She was Dr. Layla Vance, founder, CEO, genius. And no one, absolutely no one, could ever take that away from her again.